This is Joe. Say hi, Joe.
Hi.
He's a designer, a great
We'll be starting by 7:35. Please ask all your friends to join immediately. A very good evening to one and all present here. It is my privilege to welcome all of you to this seminar on how to kickstart your career in engineering conducted by the PICT IEEE student branch. It is commonly said that science is about knowing, engineering is about doing. Engineering demands rigor, proof, and deep analysis. We, as engineers, possess the skills to translate science into reality. Without us, all would have been just prosaic theories. Planning your career and life at this stage for the next few years can be a little overwhelming, right? But with the guidance of our seniors, faculty, and alumnus, all of you can see what you are capable of and will surely even achieve your dream job or reach your goal. So, on behalf of the Institute and this club, I would like to invite Mr. Abizar Lokhandwala and Ms. Rashmi Venkateshwaran, who are the fellow alumnus of our college as well as this club, and have happily consented to guide all of us today. Mr. Abizar Lokhandwala graduated from PICT in 2019 and since then has worked for Coordination as software engineer and is currently working for Meta as a software engineer. He has dominated 30 plus inter-college programming competitions and has also achieved an overall rank of 32 at Icpc Kharagpur Regionals. He is well versed with various programming languages and technologies such as machine learning, deep learning, Django, MongoDB, and much more. Ms. Rashmi Venkateshwaran graduated from PICT in 2021 and is currently working as an analyst in Goldman Sachs. She is proficient in various technologies such as neural networks, machine learning, graphic designing, likewise. She has also received job offers from renowned MNCs like Walmart, American Express, and Disney Hotstar. She was also featured by the Economic Times in its top list for 87 brightest engineering students of India. I sincerely hope all the students can make the most of this marvelous opportunity to interact and learn from such an amazing alumnus who have been in our shoes. Now, I'd request our guest speakers to take over. Thank you.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, first off, let me introduce myself. I'm pretty sure this is a pretty great introduction. So, my name is Rashmi. I'm not sure how many of you have had the opportunity to meet me. I think this will be first years and this call, first year and second year people. Okay, so I don't know if a lot of third years on call. That's okay. Yeah, thanks for like the great introduction, Tanishka. Um, So let me just keep one thing very clear. This is more or less an informal sort of a discussion. How exactly are question answers going to be addressed? Like raise a hand feature or over the chat section?
We can have them unmute and ask too.
Okay, great. All right, that's fine. I want it to be more interactive. I don't want to bore you for an hour and a half. Neither does Abhizer Bhai. I want to do that. So, a roadmap to 4 years of engineering, right? So, how many of you here have how many months has it been since you have joined college? Can anyone maybe raise their hand and unmute themselves or whatever works?
Almost a month.
Only a month? Okay, great. Um, what has the experience been like so far? As in, what is it that you like? What is it that you've liked the most so far? Be it in this club, any club, lecture wise, anything.
It's kind of overwhelming because you're learning a lot of new things and you're making a lot of friends, but yeah, now I'm getting
It's
used to it.
overwhelming to make friends.
No, it's not overwhelming to make friends, but just all this new stuff.
Okay. Any other answers? One said it's overwhelming. Anyone else who has had a different experience over the past 1 month?
Seniors and all are very supporting and helping.
Okay.
All the seniors.
All right. Anything about lectures? Anyone else?
Hectic schedule.
Hectic schedule. Okay, but online भी hectic ही है.
मतलब अभी तो हेक्टिक ही है, बाद में पता चलेगा कि कौन से लेक्चर्स अटेंड करने हैं नहीं करने हैं.
हाँ, अच्छा. Okay, because हमारे टाइम पे fourth year में they had introduced the whole online thing and a lot of us just logged in and then left our laptops to talk while we did our own work. So it was not at all hectic. But okay, nice to know. So, first of all, welcome to PICT. This is where you're going to spend the rest of your 4 years, or some of you 3 years, for those of you who have directly joined in the second year. So, when you talk about a roadmap, let me be very clear on one thing that it is not necessarily supposed to be the same for everyone. Each of you have different paths, each of you have different goals, each of you have, a different passion that you would like to follow. So whatever we are, charting out today is not necessarily something that you need to follow like to the T, but it is something that both of us have more or less gone by, or more or less have observed others doing, and so we think it is important. But feel free to like make amends and follow something that is more to your liking, more to your suiting. Um, so fine, let's get started. Now, I don't have a presentation or something to show y'all. So, feel free to make notes. You can also use the raise hand feature if you want to ask questions in between. But otherwise, we will also leave like adequate amount of time in the end for y'all to ask us questions. So don't worry, we're not going to bore you. And if you do feel bored, please raise your hands and let us know that you're bored too. We probably try and do something fun then. So anyway, to get started, so obviously you've walked into college. All of your lectures are online at the moment, and so I understand why some of you may think that it is overwhelming because a lot of it is not happening in person, like how normal interactions happen. You go to college, you join a hostel, you start interacting with people in the mess, you start interacting with people at the basketball court, you bunk lectures together, etc., etc. But at home it is slightly monotonous, and I get that. So first year is all about more or less networking, in my opinion. You network with people, you establish connections. Now when it is online, I understand why that could be a little difficult, but nevertheless, keep trying. I'm pretty sure you all are actively engaged in your WhatsApp groups, so go with that. You could also start learning a programming language, given that you have a lot of time at home. Pick up any programming language, preferably one with that has OOP involved in it. So something like C++ or Java. So you can start picking up on that any of the two languages, whatever suits you. You can also start reading up about various domains like artificial intelligence, ML, blockchain, cybersecurity, robotics, and not necessarily just technical, even things that are non-technical, be it like designing, singing, dancing, whatever is your calling. It doesn't have to be something that you need to know in depth. It just needs to be something that you're passionate about, something that you are genuinely interested in knowing about, something that you're genuinely interested learning. Additionally, also participate in various clubs, events. I'm not talking about just PISB. You can join a variety of clubs, get to know what's out there, interact with seniors in a way, interact with your peers in that way, and not just discussing about assignments or lecture notes or something like that, but together you brainstorm, build a project, build a particular website, maybe work towards building some kind of game, anything. I mean, when you participate in these club events, not only do you develop technically, but you also develop your soft skills in terms of your communication skills, your negotiation skills, all teamwork, all of that comes into play. um, Another thing that I would really like to point out, and maybe majority of you may not know, but it is also really important to contribute to open source, and this goes a long way in terms of formalizing a career in IT in general. So when you talk about open source, you have a particular site like GitHub, or Bitbucket for that matter, where you can see what other people have developed in the field of IT. You can contribute to their projects, as in enhance them, or you can create your own, put it online, and have other people contribute to your projects. In general, contributing to open source also goes a long way. Um, Apart from that, when it comes to programming, Abiza, would you want to add something?
Sure. Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Hi, guys. Thanks for the lovely introduction, Tanishka. And yep, I'm Abizar, and I'm from the 2015 batch. And yeah, quite. We had nothing to do with COVID during our college time, so we were quite lucky compared to you guys. Sorry about that. But yeah, with respect to I'll give you a short brief about me. So I joined PICT in 2015 as in the CS department. And 4 years in PICT. I was mainly into competitive programming, and because that was something that intrigued me, and it was more of a hobby for me. And later I realized that, oh, you can also use these for interviews and internships, and that's how I was able to actually get a few good opportunities that really helped me down the line. And towards the end of college, I got placed in this company called Coordination, which is in Bangalore. And through the experience that I garnered in Coordination, I was able to join Facebook London, and that's where I currently am. So just adding up to what Rashmi has to say. Because I was mainly into computer programming, that was something that I was really intrigued by. And I felt it was something that was really useful because in most of the interview rounds that you guys give in the initial 2 to 3 to 5 years of experience that you have, people always question you on DSA. And if you're good at competitive programming, which is a higher level of DSA, then you're surely going to be able to crack these DSA questions. And because if you have like really good experience in computer programming, you can focus on other aspects as like projects and OS, networking, etc., for your interviews while you're preparing. And also look into other projects. So when you're preparing for interviews, don't need to really worry about the fact that, oh man, I need to like take care of DSA and so on. But yeah, Rashmi, you can continue, and I'll be talking about this at length later on. So yeah, great.
Okay, sure. So for first year, like I said, we have started off quite slow. I asked you to, pick up any programming language that is of your interest, preferably one with OP. Explore different fields like AI, ML, blockchain, etc. Be it technical, non-technical. You can pick up even singing, dancing, playing a guitar. Um, Participate in club events, network with your peers, network with your seniors, network with each other, build friendships, contribute to open source. And lastly, I mean, this is something I will also address later on during the call, but it is also important to focus on your academics because first year is probably the one time you can, up your CGPA over here. It's a pretty good chance for you to, maintain a relatively good CGPA throughout your 4 years if you start headstrong right away. So that would essentially conclude first year. Now for the second year, here is where, adding to what Abizer just mentioned, you start comparative programming. Once you've developed your basics in terms of picking up a programming language, you can start solving questions. So start off with some basic concepts in DSA, solve questions there. So you can refer to sites like HackerRank, HackerEarth, LeetCode. More on this will be covered by Abizer. You can also start building projects on technologies that you have explored and you like. So if you have not been able to make up your mind, probably a safe bet would be going into web development or app development because it is also widely used in the industry today. So you can pick up on any project over there and try developing an application yourself, or you can work with a group of friends and do it. Additionally, also participate in hackathons. So there is a site called DevFolio. If you want to note it down, it's DEVFOLIO, DevFolio, which is where they keep posting updates about various hackathons that are conducted throughout the year by different organizations. You can participate in them. Again, you can participate individually, or you can again team up with a group of your friends and participate in them. It's also somewhat important to participate in various international competitions. For instance, there is this Microsoft Imagine Cup, which I believe is currently, the registrations are currently open, so maybe you can check that out. There's also stuff like Google Student Ambassadors. And the main reason why I'm asking you to participate in events like hackathons and all these international competitions is because it puts you on a podium where you can interact with people not only from within our college but even other colleges, other states, even international students, and understand how their thought process works. You can through these international competitions, you can also get the chance to be mentored by IT professionals in the industry already, that can guide you through your career, guide you with how you maybe you need to build your project, and then later on in life as well, you can connect with them. The whole point of the first and second year is to essentially network, meet as many as people as you can, so that you get inputs from different people and you understand what is relevant today. Now, speaking about what is relevant, it is also important for you to keep up with, the latest trends that are currently in the IT industry. So you can follow news pages, you can follow tech pages, various universities like Stanford, MIT, all of them, they're doing research in core areas within IT as well. So, it's important to keep up to date with those, especially if you're interested in those specific fields. So you can follow them on social media. I'm pretty sure all of you have some Instagram or Facebook or Twitter account. So follow those pages, so that you have like some daily update about it, and that, everything that you read is still relevant to what is happening in the world today. Uh, Along with building friendships, also start building network with people who are like-minded, people who are interested in the same fields as you are, people who want to pursue a career in the same field that you're interested in. So this is the first and second year. So it starts off like quite slow, but obviously these are really important building, like these are very important stepping stones to building your career in IT in general. It's important to network. It's important to learn how to code, be confident with one specific language. It's important to build projects. It's important to participate in hackathons. It doesn't matter if you win them or you don't win them. In the end, the experience is what counts. But as you keep participating in plenty, you know what to expect, and eventually winning just comes naturally to you. Participating in these international competitions, again, you're put in front of a wide audience. You get to interact with IT professionals. Contributing to open source, again, you're networking with people there. So first and second year is just entirely all about networking. Now, when you come to the third and the fourth year, these are relatively the more crucial years, because this is where a career in IT actually starts. How do I put it? Like budding. That is where it starts, like, sprouting and budding up, budding open. So here is where I'm pretty sure majority of you already have like LinkedIn profiles, because I did receive a couple of requests prior to this event. But for those of you who don't have, it's not necessary for you to make one right away. Once you get to the second, third year, you can build one then. Because right now in your LinkedIn profile, you don't have much to add except for like your educational details. So the third year is when you actually start building a profile where you can add your projects, you can add a description about yourself, your educational background, various competitions that you may have participated in. So you have this concept on LinkedIn of creating an all-star profile. So you can go about to do that. And that would be the first step. The second thing would also be to build a resume. So again, with resumes, I mean, now different people have asked me as to what exactly is it that matters in a resume, because some resumes do get shortlisted, some of them don't. I mean, there's no simple single formula to how you can rank a resume, but there's just some simple tips that I would give. As a fresher, it is important that you just limit your resume to like a single page. Just one page is enough, because we have not gained as much as experience to write a resume for like 3-4 pages. One page is all that we have worth talking about ourselves. Second thing, it's also important to list all the events that you mention in your resume, be it like achievements, be it any activities, projects that you've done, in reverse chronological order. As in, you start with, say, the activity that happened most recently, and as you go down, it becomes, the next most recent, and then lesser and lesser. So like, let's say if I did a project this year and I did a project last year, I would first list the one I did in 2022, then I would go to 2021, and then that way. So reverse chronological order. Thirdly, it is not important for you to list every single thing that you have done on your resume. Stick to info that is absolutely relevant to the role that you may be applying to. So in third year, ideally, you should start applying for internships. So again, internships have like, some internship may require you to be a web developer during the course of the internship. Another one may be more AI/ML focused. So you don't have to add everything that you've done throughout your first and second year into your resume. Add what's relevant to the role. So if it's AI/ML, you add stuff that is AI/ML related. If it's web dev, you add stuff that is web dev related, so on and so forth. Then yes, obviously, barbiegirl@gmail.com or spiderman@gmail.com are not professional email IDs. So stick to something that's, simple, professional. People understand that it is you. Don't write 6969 or anything in your email ID. I don't care if your birthday is on the 6th of September or the 9th of June, but stick to something that's like conventional. Then also the font, the legibility, the overall look, presentation, and all that matters. So stick to simple, legible fonts. Don't use something very cursive. ensure that whatever projects that you've built are on GitHub or hosted somewhere so that you can link them to your project. So like if someone opens up built, and preferably it should be something that is live and hosted. And always ensure that your resume is updated. A lot of people submit resumes that are like 7 months old, and you must have achieved a lot more in that 7 months that you may have not put in your resume. So it's important to keep that resume updated. So yeah, building a LinkedIn profile, building a resume, these are two things that you can begin right from the minute you set foot into third year. And then obviously, yes, you start applying for internships. So now that you have a LinkedIn profile, you have a resume, it's easy for you to apply for roles. So you can apply for roles through LinkedIn, or you can use any other sites. You have Angel List Weekly. They send you weekly updates about what all internships are available. You even have firstnaukri.com that also sends me mails even today about various openings at different companies. You can even connect with your seniors to see if there is a position available in the companies that they are working in. There are competitions that are conducted on Hacker Earth. There are competitions conducted on a Tech Gig, TECHGIG. Competitions conducted on Dare to Compete. These are usually conducted by companies themselves that keep hiring contests in specific. So you can participate in them. Sometimes there's hiring through a hackathon, there's hiring through a conference, there's hiring through a coding contest. So there's dime a dozen places to apply from. Now, while you're going through all of this, you would have covered, say, some subjects like DSA, OOP in your first and second year. Coming third year, you have more CS fundamental oriented subjects like operating systems, computer networks, database management. You have, yeah, these are some extra subjects. So ensure that your CS fundamentals are strong, because these are the topics on the basis of which companies usually ask questions. If you are not in comp and IT departments, for the ENTC folks, there are various articles that you can read up online. There are various books that you can refer to. You can maybe even contact your CS and IT friends to have them teach you a few topics if you need it. If you need that, some what's it? I was in the comm department personally, so I didn't require that kind of extra help. But namely, Geeks for Geeks was one excellent source which had explained all these concepts in quite great detail, as well as another website mainly that I use for revision, like a day prior to my interviews, was studytonight.com. The name in itself suggests you basically cram up everything in one night. So it's studytonight.com. So they have, well curated all of these concepts with examples in a page. So you can like go through that, understand concepts from there. And then obviously the god of all learning is YouTube. Dime a dozen YouTube videos out there where you can pick up all these concepts from. Additionally, along with CS oriented topics, a lot of companies tend to test your skills in aptitude as well as puzzle solving. So you can refer to sites like IndiaBix, INDIABIX, as well as Geeks for Geeks. Abiza, you want to add anything?
Great. Yeah, Rashmi, you can complete with what you have to say, and I'll continue post that.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So now, some important topics that come in are obviously regarding internships, whether to opt for a paid or an unpaid internship. So this is obviously subjective. It depends on, this is my personal opinion. I'm not I'm not enforcing my opinion on you. It's up to you entirely. I personally look at the learning opportunity that I get through an internship, because not all internships, are for a large duration. Personally, I did one internship that lasted for about 90 days and which was unpaid. I did another graphic design one with the Maharashtra government, which was also unpaid. But these were relatively internships that didn't last for a very long period. So I was okay with not being paid for it. For me, what mattered more during that time was the experience. But I also did another internship coming to my 4th year, which is when I was paid for the entire duration, not per month. Um, so it's again subjective. It's not compulsory that you need to be paid or need, that you need to be paid for it. But it's obviously nice. It's a side income that you get, especially because I don't think tax is cut for it. So it's a nice side hustle to do. A second question that usually pops up is whether CGPA matters. So when you apply for roles at companies, be it internships or even full-time roles for that matter, your CGPA doesn't entirely matter where in order for you to be hired. It's usually just like the initial shortlisting criteria per se. So usually companies prefer kids. I mean, they're dealing with a large pool of candidates. And so it's not possible for them to assess each candidate's skills. So for them, it's like an easy shortcut method. So it's usually advisable that, you maybe try and keep your CGPA at least above a 7.5 or at least somewhere close to an 8. Now in an online setting where scoring is relatively easier, um, try and keep it above 8. It'll go a long way. Then regarding the third question I usually get asked is regarding online courses. How important are those? So now when you talk about online courses, again, like I mentioned, all of these niche fields like AI, ML, blockchain, web dev, all of these, big jargon associated terms, you find courses on these on sites like Udemy, Coursera, and at least as far as PICT is concerned, I believe they have tied up with Coursera. I'm not sure if it is still in place, but at least when I was in the 4th year, they had tied up with Coursera. So our college would be paying for a large number of those courses. So for me, I got to study ML, AI, and all of those large courses, a full certification course entirely for free. So it helps because you learn something out of the process. Coursera especially has like really good assignments and all that they get to do weekly. They also have something like a peer discussion, peer review sort of thing where it's not the teacher that checks your work, but it's also another person that's learning the course with you who checks your work, and in turn you do it for them, which again is a nice way to network. But no, it does not play a very important role as far as getting hired is concerned. It just goes to show that you are a keen learner and that you take interest in topics and that you're capable of completing these courses, because Coursera courses are quite lengthy. The ML course, especially Andrew NG's, when if you've had a look at it, it's about 11 weeks long. So it's like a proper commitment, to completing those courses from start to finish. Then the next thing would be about competitive coding. Abiza, you want to take over?
Sure. So about computer programming. Okay. Actually, I was thinking of actually talking about my journey from start to end in a really quick fashion instead of because I thought it might become a little bit too much, a little overwhelming for everyone. So in that, I would basically cover everything: computer programming, internships, etc. Basically, how it was from my point of view. So Rashmi, if you wanna basically complete, and then I'll take over from there. That's cool.
Okay, that works. Then the other thing is when you want to apply to different kinds of companies, what's often confusing for people is people don't know what companies to apply to. And that requires a little bit of market research. So, I mean, there are a lot of domains that exist in the market today. But I mean, I'll tell you like about a few broad ones in like particular. So majority of you, I mean, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it, but I'll start with like the basic ones. You have companies that are usually product based and or service based. So a product based company is basically any company that makes products that may or may not be related to software, but they need their IT department to make that product more sellable. So, in simple words, these companies create some kind of product. Service based companies, on the other hand, are companies that provide software products as well as services to anyone that asks for it in return for some price. So, these companies will only build a software when a customer approaches them and asks for a software to be authored according to their taste, while a product-based company, on the other hand, already has, say, an existing product which they sell to a wide audience. So let's say, for instance, what you would do when you walk into a restaurant. You go there, you look at the menu, you let the waiter know that you would like a soup that is 1/2, you want it less sweet, more spicy, etc., etc. They customize that food item and they give it to you on a plate. Whereas, let's say, what happens when you go into an ice cream parlor? You can't tell the guy over there that you want, less mango in your ice cream or more strawberry in your syrup. It doesn't work like that. So that would be the essential difference. So product-based companies, ones like Google, Microsoft, Meta, Adobe, Flipkart, etc. These are all product-based companies. Service-based companies, for example, would be TCS, Wipro, Infosys, etc. Another category of companies fall under the fintech category. So, as the name in itself suggests, fintech is essentially a combination of the words finance and technology. And it essentially refers to any business that uses technology to enhance or to automate the entire financial services or processes. So the term in itself is, I get, like, quite broad, and it is a rapidly growing industry, and it serves both the consumers as well as the businesses. So you have things like mobile banking, insurance, cryptocurrency, investment apps, and many, many more applications. So they integrate technology into your traditional financial sectors. And again, technologies like AI, ML, blockchain, data science, and all of these are integrated so that these sectors, the usual financial systems, become more safer, faster, and basically they become more efficient. So it is one of the fastest growing tech sectors, and companies are trying to innovate in almost every area of finance, be it payments or loans or credit scoring or stock trading. So companies, like examples would be Paytm, PhonePe, Cred. So these are some examples of fintech companies. But now these are not to be confused with banks. So now when I say the word banks, what is it that comes to mind? You think about a place where you would walk in, you would make a deposit, you would withdraw cash, maybe you will request for a loan. But these fall under the category of normal commercial banks. But there's an entirely different classification of banks that is part of the whole investment world. So this would essentially engage with advisory based financial transactions that are done on behalf of individuals. And when I say individuals, I mean like really high-end, wealthy people, or like corporations, or even governments for that matter. Basically, any entity that has a large lump of money. So these banks will basically focus on stocks, bonds, investment products, and these are what you call as investment banks. So leading investment banks would again be Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, BNY Mellon, Deutsche Bank, etc. Another classification of companies would be startups. So now startups again could be, they can be product based, they can be service based, they can be fintech also. And these are basically younger companies, as in companies that have relatively, emerged in the market only fairly recently. And they've been founded essentially to just develop a particular product or service that is unique. And they bring that to the market. And then what they do is they market that product so that it appears to be irresistible or like irreplaceable for customers. So the whole point of building a startup is to innovate something or to address anything that is deficit in say an existing product in the market, or maybe even to create like an entirely new category of products altogether. So they basically disrupt ways of thinking and the way businesses have been operating for years, and that is why they're referred to as the disruptors of the market. So again, common startups would be like Dunzo, Razorpay, Coordination also for that matter. Another category of companies would be the consulting firms. So these are businesses that comprise of industry-specific experts, and they offer professional advice or guidance to other businesses on issues that those companies cannot deal with internally. So every company is bound to have some problem or the other. And these consultancy companies are contracted to essentially solve those problems. So executives in, say, company A would reach out to these consultancy firms, and those firms will now observe and analyze company A's operations and understand, how these problems can be solved. Now, these kind of consultancy firms, they hail from various different industries. So you have consultancy firms that come from finance, healthcare, advertising, engineering, architecture, technology, public sector, etc., etc. So again, some names that come to mind would be McKinsey and Company, Boston Consulting Group, Bain and Company, ZS Associates, Deloitte. So these are all different kinds of companies that I have covered. Now you come to the fourth year. So now that you have completed internships, you have done hackathons, you have participated in competitions, you've built projects, you have a good resume. Uh, Competitive coding is probably going on a good stride for you. It's now time to pick one domain that you're completely interested in, a domain that you are quite passionate about, and start applying for jobs there. So again, when it comes to applying for roles, like I mentioned, you have different sites like Hacker, Dare to Compete, TechGig. You can also directly apply for jobs on LinkedIn. You can even go to a company's site, their job portal, apply for jobs there. You can also connect with recruiters on LinkedIn, as in the HR personnel at those companies. Let them know that you're looking for a position. You can connect with your seniors, request for referrals from them. You can connect with seniors at different companies, not necessarily from PICT, but any person that's been working at the company for over a year. Ask them to refer you for a position. This is the entire job search. So the entire, or practically almost the entire year goes into this, as well as also building your final year project, which is again done in a group. So, pay a good attention to it. Preferably, you can consider when publishing a paper on the work that you do. Now, again, when it comes to applying to jobs, there are questions that arise with regards to on campus and off campus. So at least for my batch, or for rather all companies, rather all placement that has happened till my batch, and I think even the batch graduating in 2022, our college follows more or less a single placement policy, which means once you have been placed at one company, you cannot apply to a second or a third on campus, which is why a lot of people, grab an opportunity on campus and then they start hunting for opportunities off campus. So when it comes to on campus, a large part of the process, is disclosed to you in terms of you have usually like a presentation that is conducted by the company where they talk about their work culture, they talk about the salary that they're willing to offer, the role that is required, etc., etc. They also disclose the process to you, as in, okay, post this call, we're going to have a test. The test will be for so and so minutes. There will be so and so questions. Post which, again, there are interview rounds that are conducted, which is something that the placement cell keeps you updated about. But when you are appearing for all of these off campus, you may not get that much amount of transparency. In fact, off-campus processes can go on for months. It doesn't just end in a week. It goes on for months. You give the test today, you might have an interview next month, you might have your last round 3 months later, so on and so forth. So it requires a lot more patience, getting these test links, as far getting the opportunity, getting your final placement offer off campus. A second difference is with on-campus processes. The shortlisting process is fairly transparent. Usually, companies come in and they say that they're willing to, consider anyone with CGPA, say, above 7.95. So, as long as your CGPA is above 7.95, you get to attempt the assessment. Sometimes they may revise the CGPA criteria, but as far as off-campus is concerned, your CGPA does play an important role, but not as important as your experiences in terms of internships, in terms of projects. Your overall resume is what needs to stand out more. Which is why the shortlisting process, may seem unfair to many of you. A third thing with on campus and off campus is that on campus it's pretty much direct. You fill out a Google form, you're considered. Whereas off campus, there are different ways you can approach it from. You can approach it through a conference, you can approach it through a referral, you can get it through a hackathon, you can get it through a coding competition. Whereas as far as on campus is concerned, it's like a direct path. So for off campus, you're required to keep like your eyes out open, looking at opportunities on LinkedIn, looking at opportunities on different sites. So that would basically be the difference. And lastly, when it comes to preparing for interviews, like I mentioned earlier, most companies have about 3 to 4 rounds. Usually some rounds are coding based, where they give you a question on the spot and they expect you to code in front of them live. Some questions are oriented more technically, where they ask you questions on various topics in CS, being operating systems, computer networks, database management, data structures, object-oriented programming, basically any and all questions from these areas. They can even ask you questions based on system design. They can ask you essentially anything that you've done throughout your college life. Then there's usually another kind of interview that is more, behavioral based or more like aptitude based. So where they want to see how you would tackle a tough situation, they want to see how you would solve a puzzle. So that is where puzzles and aptitude questions come into play, as well as your communication skills play a huge important role. So that would be the case for those kind of interviews. And lastly, you have an HR round, which is where they ask you questions that are fairly more personal, based on stuff like about your family, your beliefs. They question a little bit about your personality. What is it that you strongly believe in, etc., etc. So when it comes to preparing for these kind of interviews, again, for technical rounds as well as aptitude-based rounds, I've primarily referred to Geeks for Geeks and Study Tonight. As far as coding rounds are concerned, I have personally referred to Lead Code and HackerRank. For HR rounds, I have just looked up questions online for different kinds of HR-related questions and kind of prepped myself for those. But there's no specific, I wouldn't know what specific source to suggest as such, but I mean, yeah, it's preferable that you just go up to Google, just search for different kinds of questions asked at HR rounds and like practice answers for them. Maybe like conduct like mock interviews with each other, talk to your friends, have them conduct an interview for you and have them give you feedback. It always helps. Yeah, that would pretty much sum up everything that I had to cover. So, Abiza, you want to take over now?
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Rashmi. That was a lot of interesting information, and yeah, even I was learning a lot of few points from there. Thanks a lot for them. And yeah, I'm sure the first years and second years would definitely take advantage of that. So yeah, I'll get started. So not to overwhelm you guys a lot. So I'll just describe in short what my journey was from the first year to the fourth year, and what decisions I had taken, why I had taken them, and how I felt they would help me in the future, and whether they actually did help me or not. So I'll start with 11th and 12th. So in 11th and 12th standard, I had taken CS as one of my subjects. And in CS, we learned very basic C++ for 2 years. Like something that you can learn within 2-3 weeks, we learned for 2 years. So it's not that you get better at it in 2 years, it's just that you're not motivated to learn. So for 2 years, we learned syntax, and we didn't even go to data structures. We just stopped towards strings and linked lists, and that's it. That's what we had for 2 years. So I had basic knowledge of C++ when I joined PICT in the CS department. And I remember, I'm not sure if you guys have attended this fest called Pulsion that comes under ACM.
1 month ही हुआ है उनको पता नहीं.
1 month you were.
हाँ.
Oh, man. Okay. So welcome to PICT first of all. And okay, so ACM is the student chapter that you guys have in college. I think there are 2 to 3 main student chapters. I'm not sure what the scene is right now, but ACM was one of them. And I think we were 2 months into college when they had this fest called Pulsion, and usme they had a few coding contests. And I took part in one of them where they give you a few questions and you write programs for it that are solutions to those questions. And it was the first time I was actually put in an environment of something like competitive programming. And because we have first years also on call, I'm not sure if you guys know what competitive programming is, but it's basically something like you are given a list of questions, and there are like around, let's say, 20, 30, 100 people who you're playing with or against. You're given, let's say, 5 questions, and the questions can be something like print all Fibonacci numbers or print the factorials of a particular number that's given as input. And the first person to solve all of these questions, or the person to solve the maximum questions in the given allotted time, basically wins the contest. And if you win the contest, you obviously do get a prize. That prize can be some merchandise or it can be money, whatever it might be. So because I knew a little bit of programming, I was like, okay, sure, like why not just go and try it out? And the questions that I saw were some were quite easy, some were quite complicated. But just looking at those questions and like thinking about how do you solve them, it's like an aptitude test that requires you to code. And that felt really intriguing to me. I felt it was it was really fun to solve. And that was one thing that I liked about it. And the second thing was it was competitive. So inherently, I am a pretty competitive person and I like challenges. I like competing with other people and then discussing questions with them and seeing that, okay, how could you do better? How could I do better? Etc. Etc. And because of these two main points, I really liked the contest. Though I bombed the contest, I was out in the second round itself. But I really liked what type of questions were there to solve. And right after the contest, I went up to my seniors. I asked them, okay, how do you solve this? How do you solve this? And they were like, yaar, ye kafi simple hai. Isme bas ek function lagana tha. And I was like, maine to ye suna nahi hu, matlab, I don't know what this is. And then I started researching upon these things. And I also had a really close friend of mine who was also as interested as I was. And then we both started basically taking part in contests and giving these contests in different fests that were in our college. And then we had credence. Credence may be the same thing took place. And slowly and steadily, we started finding more like-minded people in college in the first year itself who were interested in these contests. And what I feel is that for competitive programming, at least, if you have a really good peer group, a good competitive peer group, obviously it has to be healthy competition. You don't want to pull somebody's leg down to pull yourself up. But if you have a really good peer group, you are self-motivated because you guys have really good daily discussions, and these discussions actually lead to fruitful thoughts, and you become better. All of you become better in this particular field. And because this field has so much of thinking involved, and whenever you solve a question correctly, it has a really great energetic boost, as in you feel really satisfied. And that was basically our motivating factor to continue going through these contests. And the money, of course, because prize money, who doesn't want that? And I think in February or January of our first year, my friend and I had gone to VIT, Vishwakarma, for some coding contest. And it was the first time we actually won. And upon winning, we were like, okay, chalo yaar, dairy milk silk, yeah, some type of chocolate or some t-shirt or something would be our prize. And our prize money was actually around, I think, 2,000 rupees. And it was the first time we as college students earned something. And that feeling was ecstatic. We were really overwhelmed, and we were like, okay, yaar, we put in effort for something, and then this is what we got in return. And I won't say, money shouldn't be your motivating factor, but basically the type of satisfaction that you get to see results really quickly. And that was one reason that we continued doing computer programming. And then we took, after first year, we got a really good peer group. We got a lot of other friends who were also interested in this. Then we created a WhatsApp group where we would basically post questions and contests and discuss this with each other. And then we started having meetups in college itself. Our seniors started having SIGs. So SIGs are basically, after college gets over, we book a particular class, all of us go over there, and our seniors teach a particular concept to us, and then they give us questions and we solve all of them together. So that way, your seniors are basically trickling down all their knowledge to you so that you become better. And because they are teaching you all of this, they are also improving and making their concepts more sturdier and robust. And we started having these sessions, and we started interacting more with the seniors. We got to know about their experience and the type of contests they go to, the type of things that they do. And then in the second year, we got to know about internships. That, okay, like usually people do internships in the third year or fourth year. But I had a friend who had a startup and I had interned over there. Very basic JavaScript was what we had done over there. But initially I felt that how would I be able to handle like college studies and computer programming and an internship at the same time together? And I was quite worried about that. Okay, like should I take the internship or not? What do I do? But then I was like, okay, let's just go through this decision. Let's YOLO it. I'll go through it and see. I'll go ahead with the internship and let's see what happens. And I realized that you make time, you have a lot of free time. Everyone has a lot of free time. People just don't realize that they have a lot of free time. And the moment you commit to something, you will automatically adjust your time around it and you'll be able to do it. So if you guys ever during college, because you're just starting out, if you ever feel like I'm not going to take this opportunity because it'll affect my studies or something else, just try it out, commit to it, let it go on for a few weeks or a month and so on, and see how it goes. If you really feel it's affecting your other commitments, then sure, you can drop it off in the middle. But most likely you're going to build your routine around it and it's going to fix itself. That won't be an issue. And I was able to do the same thing after I accepted the internship, and I got a good experience around JavaScript because of that internship. And that was in the second year. And in the second, we were also preparing for this contest called Icpc. So as I mentioned, because we were heavily into competitive programming, there is this contest called Icpc, International Collegiate Programming Contest. That is basically a worldwide competitive programming contest. So initially, it starts from your college level. So you build a team of 3 people, and your team of 3 people competes against other people who have their teams of 3 people. And from one college, around 2 to 3 teams get selected and they go for regionals. So regionals is another contest where you now compete against other colleges. And we had our regionals during our time. Regionals were basically in Kharagpur, Amritapuri, Pune, Chennai, Gwalior, etc., etc. So our whole team, we were able to basically go to Kharagpur and give a contest over there. So basically traveling to Kharagpur, preparing for a contest, meeting other teams, getting to network and communicate and actually grow your network that way. That was also a really cool experience that we had. And we started preparing for this contest in the second year, and while also the internship was going on. And coming to college studies, I think in the first year and second year, you guys have written papers, but you guys also have MCQ unit. I think MCQ test for 30 marks, if I'm not wrong. And those are really easy to crack. So you guys can just like get through them, study like 2 days or a day before the exam. And as in, that's up to you, however you would like to do it. But like first and second year, like the times that you can easily score marks very easily because again, MCQ tests. Third year, fourth year, it's not that simple because everything is written by then. So yeah, try to make the most out of the first year, second year MCQ tests as much as you can. And regarding your GPA, what I'd like to say is it depends on what your future plan is. So most of the companies that I interviewed for, and I've seen my friends also interview for a lot of companies don't really care much about GPA because they know that there are a lot of talented people who don't have a good GPA, but they are still really smart, be it bookish or street knowledge, and they are really good at what they do. So people don't really care about GPA nowadays unless you want to go for masters. And if you want to go for masters, you have to create a whole application and so on. And in that, your GPA does matter because that's how they filter students out. So as in, you're in the first year right now, so you don't have to worry much about that. But by second year, third year, you should have a fair idea as to whether you want to work or whether you want to go and study further inside India, outside India, and so on. So that is something that you can leave for the future. But yeah, so then came second year internships, CP, and we started going to a lot of other different colleges. And I'm sure like that is something that's really difficult for you guys now. But hopefully, if things do decrease and colleges start opening up, I really hope that is something you guys can experience because that's an amazing feeling. Just going to different colleges, meeting new people. I have a lot of friends from colleges like COEP, AIT, VIT, etc., who are currently like at different places, Amazon, Google, so on. And basically just networking with them, knowing what their life is like, what companies they are working with. It's a really great thing to network because you never know later on in life when it might help you. So try to talk to as many people as you can. Start from within college, then start expanding your network to outside college. That would be really helpful. So post second year came third year, and in third year, again, internships were going on. We were still into computer programming. And I think that was basically it. And then towards fourth year, started placements. Now, for placements, people, so one thing that you'll notice is people who were not into computer programming throughout first year, second year, third year, all of them started coming into that scene in the fourth year, because now they realize that, okay, we have to prepare for interviews. We have to get our DSS skills, basically hone them and make them better. And these, we started seeing a lot of people come in, a lot of people came to us, how do we start? How do we do this? How do we do that? And you could see the stress that they were going through, because DSA was not their cup of tea. It was something that they had never practiced before. While my friends and we had been doing that since 3 years. So we were not really worried about that. And we were quite confident that, okay, we can get through these interview rounds with respect to DSA at least. But now the issue was that those guys had a lot of projects that they had worked on, while we guys had nothing to like talk about. And that was when we started looking into projects and we started building onto that. And towards the end of third year, you will have a seminar project that you need to work on. So this seminar project is basically a small project that you guys create in the span of, I think, 3 to 4 months. And either you can create a small mini project and present that, or you can do something else. So what I had in mind was, because I had no project to show on my resume, I thought that, okay, I'll put in some effort, I'll make a good project in those 3 to 4 months for my seminar project, so that I can also put that on my resume and have something to talk about at least. And that is what I did. And that was in the field of MLAI, but it can be in any field, anything that you have worked on. And with respect to, okay, I'll come to that later. So yeah, that is what I did. And I had a fair, good enough project on my resume by then. And I had also landed an internship with this company called InterviewBit. So the internship was mainly about competitive programming again, because that was a field I knew well. It was about making questions for them, curating problems for them, which later turned into a development project where we had to basically work on their backend Ruby on Rails and build a whole feature out for them. And that was a really good project where I got to work with databases, MySQL, deployment services, and Ruby on Rails, the backend framework also, and a little bit of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, and so on. So again, I was able to include that too on my resume. And as I mentioned, I had been talking to a lot of seniors around that time. And there was this one senior who I was really, how do I say, I really looked up to. And he had got into coordination. His name is Web of Tulsan. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him. So I really looked up to him, and the type of work coordination he used to do really intrigued me, because it was quite hectic. It was, the work-life balance is not very, very great, I'd say. But the amount of learning you get within a year or two is quite immense, and that really helps you out. It gives you a really good boost to your career at the start itself. And that was something I wanted to get into. So I had talked to him. I started preparing for coordinations interviews. And in the third year, I sat for an internship interview with them. But sadly, in the second round, I couldn't proceed after that. And that was I did lose a lot of morale at that moment. And you're going to like face moments like this where you really want something, but you won't be able to get it. And it's going to put you down for sure. And that is like the normal thing to happen. But what you do after that is basically what will define you. So I was quite low for, I think, a month or so, because I could not crack that round. And I felt like, okay, all this CP that I'm doing is of no use. I should have instead devoted my time to projects or done something else, etc., etc. But one thing you have to realize is that interviews are very luck dependent. Not only interviews, but everything in life. If you get something, you get it because you're deserving, but also there's a lot of luck involved. If you don't get something, you were still deserving, but your luck wasn't good at that moment. And then you have to try again, but just keep trying until you, okay, just keep trying. I won't complete the sentence there. But yeah, so I wasn't able to get the internship, and I did lose a lot of morale, but again, my seniors were there to help me, my friends were there to help me, and all of us again started preparing together. And towards the next year, I applied to coordination again for the full-time job, and I was able to crack that. And after getting that interview offer, that placement offer, I was really happy, because like that was my dream company. That was something I really wanted to get into. Then I started interviewing with other companies. Now, with respect to interviews, whenever you sit for an interview, you will obviously be really, really anxious. You'll be really scared, because you want to crack that round. You want to do really well. but you're not really sure. You're worried, you're anxious. What question might come towards me? Should I say this or should I say that? And you're also on video call with the interviewer. It's going to be really scary. But once you have a really good offer under your belt, all that anxiety goes away, because now you know in your head that, okay, I already have a good offer. If I screw this interview up, I have a great backup option anyway. And if I don't screw this interview up, then well and good. It's a win-win situation. And once that anxiety is out of the window, your interviews actually go better than the previous interviews that you've given, because now you can think clearly. You can sit down and actually process thoughts in your head. And that's what I started seeing happening to me, because I already had coordinations offer. I was able to sit for other interviews and really go through them with ease, because I wasn't really worried about them. And I had done all my prep that I had to do during coordinations time. And because of that, I was able to bag around 7 to 8 offers. And ultimately, the one that I really wanted was coordination, because the other offers did not seem as lucrative to me. And yeah, I joined coordination. I worked for 3 months in Dubai. So in Dubai, we have a boot camp, is what coordination provides. And probably if you guys also get into coordination, that is something that you will get to, you'll also get to go to Dubai. That'll be really cool. And then worked in Bangalore for a few months. Then came COVID, and back to Pune working from home. So I stay in Pune. And 2 years went by, and then I started looking for other companies. And that's when I realized that, okay, now that as in I have time, because I'm relatively quite young and don't have a lot of responsibilities right now, it's a good time for me to actually reach out and look at, try to live outside India and see um, what the life is like, and then take a decision with respect to whether I want to settle down in India or settle down outside India. And that's when I started looking for international offers. And surprisingly to me, it's not really tough to get international offers. People are hiring a lot in Europe. So you have a lot of companies hiring in London and Amsterdam and Germany, Berlin, also in Poland, Warsaw, etc., etc. So that's not an issue. Getting a job right out of college or with a few years of experience in the US is very difficult, because they have a ton of visa issues. That is something you don't want to get into. But basically, shifting to Europe is not really tough. And then I saw that Facebook is hiring in Europe, and I applied to Facebook. I got a referral from a friend of mine, and the interviews rounds went down. They started. I sat for the interview rounds. It was basically DSA, and because I'm an experienced engineer, there was also some system design involved. And at the same time, I was also interviewing with other companies. And ultimately, after filtering through all my companies, I felt Facebook was the company I wanted to join, because again, they have a fast-paced environment. It's like a startup over here, but it's not a startup, and you also get to play around with a lot of data, a lot of users, a lot of different things that you can do. So I took that offer, and yeah, basically here I am. So that was just like a quick run through of what my college journey up till now was. And with respect to, so basically what I'd like to advocate over here is about computer programming, because that is something I felt really helped me during my college, because it really made me well versed in DSA. And if you're well versed in DSA conceptually, you can also implement these programs easily. And because we as programmers need to implement everything that we do, it really, things that work become really easy. And for computer programming, again, just you need to be motivated first of all. You have to understand why you're doing this, what you're doing, what's the point of doing this. And after that, for practice, as Rashmi had mentioned, there are a lot of different sites: Code Chef, Code Forces, HackerRank, HackerEarth, etc. So if you guys want, we can have another session on that, basically just for computer programming and trying to understand how that works. And I'm sure that you guys would be having a lot of sessions for computer programming later on. PISB and ACM and a lot of other different student bodies are going to do that. So yeah, that's it from my side for now. Rashmi and I were planning that we put more emphasis on the Q&A session, so that we can actually answer your doubts instead of telling you guys what we think from our lenses about how things are and how things should be. So if we can head, Rashmi, do you have anything else to say? Otherwise, we can go ahead with the Q&A session.
We can move to Q&A.
Perfect.
Okay, so we call out names. You guys can like raise your hands if you have questions. How many of you are here listening? Let's have a show of hands for that. There's only one person listening. ये lecture नहीं है. We didn't want to bore you. Okay,
Oh, they're
good.
not sleeping at least, so that's
Ah,
okay.
bhai, people are raising hands. They're awake. Okay, now put your hands down. Only those who have questions can keep them raised. Okay, presuming everyone here has questions. Samruddhi, do you want to ask? Okay, she's leaving. Great. Guys, anyone unmute yourselves and just ask.
Shall we just switch the chat box on instead and let them post
I-
their questions, and we can one by one?
वो भी चलेगा, but there, I mean, I can't.
Yeah, I can't see the chat box. I think that's disabled.
Yeah. That's why.
I can read it out to you if there is anything in the chat box.
Okay. Yeah.
So we can't write anything in the chat box.
So Yash, you want to ask your question? Oh, Vansh bhi hai. Okay.
Hey,
Hi.
Rashmi. Hi, Abhizar bhaiya.
Hi, man.
थोड़ा फेसबुक के डीएसए राउंड के बारे में बताओ, लेवल क्या था?
Acha. So Facebook has 2 DSA rounds, and surprisingly, they were not very difficult. They were around lead code easy, lead code medium level questions. And it was mainly, the questions were not very competitive programming types. They were more of, given a linked list, what do you do? Given a binary search tree, what can you do, etc., etc. So they weren't very difficult, and they were very similar to the type of questions that we prepare on during our freshers, fourth year, the type of questions that we prepare for during interviews. It was very similar to that.
Yeah. And what about the design interview?
So the design interview will mainly take place for experienced engineers. So if you're joining as a fresher, you won't have a design interview. But if you're joining as a senior engineer, the design interview is basically on scalable systems and distributed systems. So they'll give you a particular question, something like, how do you build Facebook's status search feature? And then you have to define how you'll build that. Then they'll tell you, okay, what if our number of users increases, or the number of requests that we get will increase? How will you store all of them? You can't just store it in a simple SQL in a relation database, because now you have a lot of data and you have a lot of users pinging at the same time, something like 1 million user requests per minute. So how do you handle all of that? So all of that is what comes in your design interview.
और उसके लिए कुछ अलग से तैयारी किया, या जो एक्सपीरियंस था सीएन में उसने ही हेल्प किया?
So CN experience definitely helped. So I was able to understand a lot of things वहाँ पे. But अलग से तैयारी भी मैंने किया था. So there are a lot of system design books. There's one book called Grokking the System Design Interview. So through that book, you basically understand all basics of things. But again, that is not like something that will cover everything. उसके अलावा there are